I've been involved in biotech for over 50 years. I was a young faculty member at Johns Hopkins when I started my first biotech company in the basement of my house with an Apple IIe printer. I wish I still had that. I've been really impressed by watching the great progress of discovery that's gone on over the last 50 years. It keeps us young. And I was delighted when GlycoMira contacted me to serve as CEO in 2016. My wife reminds me that's my fourth failure at retirement. Okay. Well, GlycoMira was founded in 2011 as a licensee of the University of Utah to develop a series of compounds, sulfated glycosaminoglycans, that had some potential therapies. The company's initial research and development over its first 5 years centered on the application of these glycans to treat rosacea in the face as an anti-inflammatory. And as oftentimes happened, it didn't work out. But the circuitous path to new information led to some interesting ideas. Our research showed us that a few of these compounds had some very unique physiologic properties. And I'd like to share those with you today. I'd like to thank BioUtah and the Pivot Center for the opportunity to share the GlycoMira story and introduce our novel immune modulator technology. GlycoMira's immune technology as a platform has the potential to improve the outcome in many cancer therapies and with addressable markets exceeding $1 billion annually. Preclinical data demonstrates that the compound significantly reduces adverse effects and enhances treatment efficacy. Our science is strong, it's peer-reviewed, it's vetted. We've received over $12 million from the National Institutes of Health to advance the technology to the clinic. And our team is very experienced. We've participated in 7 FDA approvals, founded 9 companies with exits approaching $800 million. Improving the care for patients with cancer. In 2021, in the US alone, there were 1.9 million cases of cancer. The standard of care for most of these cases involves chemotherapy, surgery, and of course, radiation. And an unfortunate side effect of this therapy is quite often oromucositis, which is clinically manifested as severe lesions in the mouth with immense pain. I know from personal experience about oromucositis. I had a sister who was diagnosed with B-cell lymphoma and suffered with mucositis for a couple of years before being treated. Fortunately, today she's cancer-free. Unfortunately, I had a dear friend who also passed away recently and suffered from oromucositis throughout the treatment for metastatic breast cancer. GlycoMira's technology has the potential for a paradigm shift in the way cancers are treated. Our lead asset, GM1111, is a sulfated synthetic glycosaminoglycan that has been shown in animal models to mitigate the radiation-induced oromucositis, a reduction in the volume of the tumor. New data is also showing that it inhibits the proliferation of cancer stem cells. This is very new. We don't have a lot of information here, but it's certainly an area that we're going to pursue. We've seen no toxicology or no toxic effects or safety effects in any of our animal studies. And subtly, but very importantly, our API has been manufactured in kilogram quantities in compliance with cGMPs, and it's got excellent stability data. We've got over 10 years of stability data. The first indication the company is pursuing is the use of GM1111 to mitigate oromucositis arising from the treatment of head and neck cancers. The total oromucositis drug market is predicted to reach $2.3 billion by 2025. New drugs for managing oromucositis are eligible for breakthrough or fast-track status at the FDA. Clinical trials are straightforward and simple. The standard of care involving for head and neck cancers is radiation 5 days a week for 5 to 7 weeks. the majority of these patients are going to develop mucositis of some degree. And treatment options are very limited. The principal care is to keep the mouth clean to avoid secondary infections. There are a few 510K medical devices, salves to cover the wounds to make you feel a little better, but nothing really treats the underlying cause of inflammation. There are 2 FDA-approved drugs for managing oral mucositis, but neither has gained much traction in the clinic due to label restrictions and toxicity. There's clearly a need for a safe and effective oral mucositis drug to go along with radiation and chemotherapies. GM1111's mode of action is quite unique. It is an innate immune response inhibitor. It blocks the body's response, the excessive response, to the tissue damage caused by radiation and chemotherapy. Interrupting this cycle will lead to improved outcomes for the patients. In a model of radiation-induced mucositis, subcutaneous administration of GM1111 showed a dose-dependent reduction in oral mucositis. In this model, the animals received radiation for 5 days, with the treatment group receiving GM injection concurrent with radiation. At the end of the study, the untreated group had extensive oral lesions, and yet the high-dose treated group had almost none. This has been repeated in several other studies and tends to bear out. We knew, however, that the agency was going to ask us, what effect does GM1111 have on the tumor, and could it possibly interfere with treatment? So we commissioned a study of an animal model of radiation treatment of human head and neck cancer to answer the question. Human cancer cells were implanted in mice, allowed to grow to a tumor, and then treatment was started. At the end of the treatment period, the animals were sacrificed and the size of the tumors were evaluated. And we fully expected there was no effect. There was no reason to believe it, and we kind of had to scratch our heads. Not only were the tumors reduced in the irradiated group with GM1111 given concurrently with radiation, the tumors were almost non-existent. And it was statistically significant, and even more so, a greater reduction of tumors than from radiation alone. So with this, we began to look at what our dosage form would look like. And it's quite simple. GM1111 is readily soluble in water. It will be in water for injection for subcutaneous administration. It will be a combination with other therapies. It's not a replacement. And importantly, it integrates nicely into the standard of care. These patients come into the hospital or the treatment center 5 days a week. We're not changing the basic underlying therapy. As an addition to the arsenal of therapies, we're simply augmenting it. In the end, we don't change what's being treated. Our development plan is well underway. Our preclinical safety tox studies for IND enabling are ongoing. We expect to finish them by the end of the year. We're going to start manufacturing of our API and dosage form this year to get ready for clinical trials. We expect to submit an IND towards the early part of 2023, with clinical trials starting towards the end of 23. I'd like to introduce the team quite quickly. Glenn Presswich is our co-founder and chief scientific officer. Tom Kennedy, co-founder and chief medical officer. Justin Savage is our senior vice president of operation. Won-Young Lee is our vice president of research. Abby Pulsifer, vice president of product development. And among our advisors, we have 2 key ones. Stephen Sonis, Harvard professor, is a key opinion leader in the development of mucositis drugs. And Caleb Bell, PhD, is our business advisor and investor and entrepreneur. The investment opportunity. We believe that our preclinical data justifies the development of this product as an adjuvant or a combination for the treatment of many cancers. It's been de-risked. we've been well vetted by the National Institutes of Health. Our API has been produced in kilogram quantities by CGMPs. We've had guidance from the FDA in our pre-IND meeting. And our IP portfolio is growing with the addition of new patent application for uses of GM 1111. Presently, the company has enough funds to fund its operation through 2024. We're looking for a bridge financing of $500,000 early this year to enable us to manufacture API and dosage forms so that upon IND approval, we can move quickly to the clinic. And later this year, the company will begin efforts for a $15 million Series A financing to fund its clinical trials. And with that, I thank you, and we're happy to answer any questions.